Imagine a future where the vastness of the cosmos is governed by hands that deem themselves superior. Hands that, in their arrogance, crushed the life, liberty, and hope of countless species. But what happens when these hands dare to touch the untouchable? What if, instead of finding submission, they awakened a dormant force, a roar of fury that would echo throughout the galaxy, promising a vengeance forged in centuries of determination? Prepare to witness the awakening. Prepare for the rebellion. Prepare to see humanity, once underestimated, rise from its ashes and liberate not only itself but an entire enchained cosmos. In the glittering heart of galactic civilization, the Council, with its pomp and cruelty disguised as order, had declared its verdict. Not only did they banish humanity from the stars, condemning them to their home cradle, but, in an act of inconceivable barbarity, they executed a child. Her crime? Allegedly, vandalizing an alien sanctuary. Her punishment? A disruptor round that splattered her innocence on the council floor, a sacrifice that would forever stain the hands of those who claimed to be just. With a cold, smug smile, the council pronounced, "Let this serve as a lesson to your primitive species. Humanity's disobedience will no longer be tolerated." The transmission cut, but the image of that small, lifeless body was seared into the soul of every human who witnessed it. In the icy silence of the HSS Indomitable's bridge, orbiting Earth, Captain Logan Carter clenched his fists. His eyes, once filled with caution, now burned with a cold, calculating fury. They killed a child," he murmured, his voice hoarse, almost a whisper. Nervously, knuckles white on the control bar, one of his subordinates asked, "Your orders, sir?" A chilling determination filled Logan's gaze. He turned to his crew, his voice resonating with an unshakable authority that promised devastating consequences. "Signal the fleet. Activate the Nova cannons. And plot a direct FTL jump to Galactic Council headquarters. This is the day humanity feared, but secretly prepared for. The day the aliens would show their true fangs and cross a line from which they could never return. It's time to make the aggressors pay in blood. It's time to unleash the full force of Earth's most powerful warships. Ships that haven't seen battle in centuries. Ships that would make the galaxy tremble. Ships that would burn the Council's worlds to ashes." Beneath the rocky mountains of Earth, the planet's heart opened. Camouflaged doors, carved into the very stone, revealed a hidden abyss. Captain Logan Carter, leading his most senior Earth Defense Force officers, marched through dark concrete corridors, lit only by flickering fluorescent lamps. The echo of their boots on the cement announced their arrival at a destination few even dreamed existed. At the end of the corridor, an immense steel door, several meters thick, sealed the secret. Logan reached out, his palm resting against the biometric scanner. A recognition beep, and then, with a ponderous groan, the door began to open. It swung wide to reveal a cavernous underground hangar, steeped in shadows. Logan flipped a switch and, with a click, spotlights flooded the secret space. What was revealed made the officers gasp, their eyes wide with astonishment. The hangar was filled with rows upon rows of warships. Their hulls, forged from strange, iridescent metal, shimmered under the lights. They were angular, sleek, predatory ships. None of them looked like anything anyone there had ever seen. Logan turned to his men, his expression hard as granite. "Gentlemen, allow me to introduce the Sigma fleet. Built in secret during the early days of human space exploration and hidden as a last resort. When the Council confined us to our home system, they had no idea of the ace we had up our sleeve." One of the officers approached the nearest ship, running a hand over its prow, his brow furrowed in admiration. "I thought the Sigma fleet was just a myth." Logan shook his head. "The Sigma fleet is very real, and it's time to show the galaxy exactly what human ingenuity and determination can accomplish. The Council wants to confine us to Earth. We'll see how they like it when we show up on their doorstep with technology centuries ahead of theirs. With the power of the Sigma fleet, we will make them pay for their crimes and secure humanity's place among the stars." The officers exchanged glances, their faces etched with steely resolve. As one, they nodded. Logan straightened his uniform and marched towards the lead ship, the others following his steps. His voice echoed through the hangar, "It's time to remind the galaxy that humanity bows to no one. We've been pushed too far, and now, we push back. Today, we take the fight to the Council's doorstep. Today, they will learn the consequences of their treachery. Today, we unleash the Sigma fleet." Light years away, at Galactic Council headquarters, Counselor Xanth reveled in decadence in his luxurious chambers. The wrinkled-faced Aurano savored a bright green liqueur, potent enough to strip paint from a ship's hull, but to Xanth, it was like water. A faint signal caught his attention, and the holographic screen activated, revealing the anxious face of Yik, his assistant. The small Aurano's normally gray skin was now an anxious purple. "Counselor, our long-range sensors have detected a large fleet of unknown vessels entering our system at high speed," Yik reported, his voice strained. Xanth waved a dismissive hand, his many rings glinting. "Very well, send a patrol to intercept them. Probably just some fledgling race trying to make a name for themselves." Yik shook his head, the sharp movement barely suppressing panic. "Sir, the patrol is already gone. They were destroyed the moment they entered range of the unknown ship's weapons. We didn't even have time to get an image of what attacked them." The terror in his voice was unmistakable. Xanth sat up abruptly, his drink spilling from his goblet. "What? How is this possible? What kind of weapons are they using?" his voice full of disbelief. Xanth rose, swaying, and made his way to an ornate control panel on the wall. His fingers flew across the interface, inputting a code. The room darkened as a giant holographic star map erupted, filling the air with a blue glow, showing the Aurano system. A cluster of furious red dots shot towards the central blue orb representing the Aurano homeworld. Xanth stared, uncomprehending, at the number of enemy ships. "By the gods, there are hundreds of them. How could an unknown race have a fleet of this size without our knowledge?" he wailed, his voice full of dread. A cold thread of dread coiled in Xanth's stomach as he studied the display, a horrifying suspicion crystallizing in his mind. He turned back to the holographic screen, meeting Yik's terrified gaze. "Yik, tell me everything you can about the configuration and capabilities of these ships. Omit nothing," he commanded with a deadly calm, disguising the fear that consumed him. Yik's report was not encouraging. The ships were angular and sleek, their hulls composed of an unknown iridescent alloy that defied scanners. They moved with impossible grace and speed, their formations flawless, and their weapons, by the ancestors, their weapons. Plasma cannons that ripped through shields like paper, missiles that moved faster than the eye could follow and never missed, and strange directed energy beams that cut ships to pieces with surgical precision. But worst of all was the symbol emblazoned on the prows of the approaching ships. A symbol every species in the galaxy had learned to fear, even if only from whispered rumors and half-remembered legends. It's the symbol of the Terran Dominion," Yik said, his voice choked. Humanity had returned. And this time, not as explorers or diplomats, but as conquerors. Conquerors armed with technology beyond the Aurano's wildest nightmares. Xanth staggered back from the display, his heart hammering a frantic, terrified rhythm against his ribs. He thought of the human child gunned down on the floor of the council chambers, by his order. The catalyst for this invasion. He had terribly miscalculated, he knew it now. And now his people would pay the price for his arrogance. As the Terran fleet approached, Xanth wondered if there was any force in the universe that could stop the coming storm. Somehow, he doubted it. On the view screen, Xanth's bulging eyes widened, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. He gripped the arms of his command chair, the plastic creaking under the force of his clutch. Logan gave him no chance to recover. The Aurano seemed to shrivel, his shoulders slumped. When he spoke, his voice was hollow. "What? What do you want, human?" Xanth asked, his voice trembling and defeated. Logan leaned forward, his eyes locked on Xanth. Justice. The Council will revoke its ban on human FTL travel, effective immediately. You will recognize our right to expand and explore as we see fit. Any further acts of aggression against humanity will be met with swift and devastating retaliation, Captain Logan Carter declared. Xanth's nostrils flared, his pride warring with his fear. The Council will never agree to your demands. You are but one species, you cannot dictate terms to the entire galaxy. Xanth said with disdain. Logan nodded to Samir, who typed a command into his console. The view screen split, Xanth's image shrinking to a corner as a new image took center stage. It showed the wreckage of the destroyed Aurano battlecruiser, the twisted metal still glowing cherry red. But it was what was happening around the debris field that made Xanth gasp. Swarms of small, agile craft were pouring from the Sigma fleet's hangars, darting towards the remaining Aurano ships like angry wasps. They moved with impossible speed and grace, weaving and dodging through defensive fire with ease. And then, they opened fire with their own weapons, and the Aurano ships began to die. Beams of blue-white energy sliced through shields and hulls, leaving glowing scars in their wake. Missiles streaked through space, spinning and impacting with devastating force. The Aurano return fire was sporadic, panicked. They couldn't seem to lock onto the human fighters, their targeting systems confused by the strange material of their hulls. Within minutes, a third of the Aurano fleet was reduced to floating wreckage. The remaining ships were in disarray, their formation broken, their captains shouting contradictory orders. It was a complete rout. Throughout it all, the Sigma fleet remained at a distance, weapons ready, but silent. They didn't need to engage, their screen of fighters was more than enough to handle the outmatched Aurano warships. Logan turned to Xanth, his expression grim. I won't ask again, Counselor. Surrender, and let this be the end, Captain Logan Carter said, his voice firm and unwavering. Xanth slumped back into his chair, all the fight drained from him. He looked at his crew on the bridge, seeing the same realization in their eyes. They had gravely underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the price. With a trembling hand, Xanth reached out and cut the transmission. The view screen darkened. Logan turned to Hawkins, his eyes hard. Signal the fleet. All ships, weapons on standby. Give them a chance to comply, Captain Logan Carter ordered. Hawkins nodded, relaying the order. For a long moment, the bridge was silent, the tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. All eyes were glued to the tactical display, watching the red and blue icons representing the two fleets. Then, slowly, the red icons began to move. One by one, the Aurano ships were powering down their weapons, their thrusters. They were surrendering. A cheer erupted from the human crew, fists pumping in the air, backslapping. They had done it. They had brought the mighty Galactic Council to its knees. But Logan didn't join the celebration. He merely watched the display, his face an unreadable mask. He knew this was only the beginning. The Council would not easily forgive this humiliation. There would be repercussions, political and military. The path ahead would be long and difficult, paved with conflict and sacrifice. But Logan also knew that this was a turning point. No longer would humanity be content to live under the Council's thumb. No longer would they be second-class citizens in their own galaxy. Today, they had proved they could not only stand up to the alien powers that sought to control them, but that they could defeat them. Today, they had taken their first step towards a new future, a future where humanity would chart its own course among the stars. The victory in the Aurano system was overwhelming, a silent roar of justice that echoed to the farthest corners of the galaxy. But Logan Carter knew the real challenge was just beginning. The Galactic Council, though wounded, still possessed overwhelming numerical superiority. It wasn't enough for humanity to be superior in technology and tactics, they needed to level the playing field. And for that, he would need allies. Far from the glittering lights of the Council's core worlds, there existed a forgotten, subjugated civilization, the Voron. A once proud and warrior people, forced into slavery and hard labor under the Council's yoke for centuries. Human intelligence reports suggested they were at their breaking point, ready for revolt. An alliance with them would not only bring numbers, it would bring the accumulated fury of an oppressed people, the thirst for vengeance humanity now understood so well. The Sigma fleet, silent and imposing, emerged from hyperspace on the outskirts of the Coryx Nebula, Voron territory. Clouds of purple and blue gas danced on the viewscreen, a backdrop of cosmic beauty that concealed oppression. Sensors quickly detected a network of Voron mining outposts, each teeming with council overseers, arrogant in their authority. Logan, a predatory smile on his lips, gave the order. "All ships, drop cloak," Captain Logan Carter said, his voice firm. The human fleet materialized in the vacuum, their hulls shimmering and menacing. The sudden appearance of the warship sent the council overseers into a frenzy of panic. Within minutes, council ships fled in full retreat, their engines ablaze, leaving behind the Voron workers, stunned but hopeful, watching the human ships. Logan opened a channel to the largest outpost. A time-worn Voron face, scales scarred by battle, filled the screen. The alien warrior watched Logan with suspicion. "I am Captain Logan Carter, of Earth. We have come to offer you a chance to break your chains and exact vengeance upon your tormentors," Commander Trax, Voron, said, his voice grave. The Voron narrowed his eyes, suspicion written in every line of his body. "And why should we trust you, human? Your species is new to the galactic stage. What could you possibly do for us?" Commander Trax, Voron, asked with disdain. In response, Logan transmitted images of the confrontation with Xanth and the decisive defeat of the Aurano Armada. As the Voron leader watched, his eyes widened, disbelief giving way to a fierce, hungry glint. When the recording ended, he looked at Logan with new respect. "You have shown your strength, Terran. What do you want from us?" Commander Trax, Voron, said, a tone of admiration in his voice. Logan leaned forward, his voice low and intense. "I propose an alliance. Fight by our side, and together, we will shatter the Council's dominion over the galaxy. Not just for humanity, but for all those they have crushed under their heels," Captain Logan Carter declared. The Voron threw his head back and laughed, a harsh, guttural sound, full of bloodlust and the promise of violence. "You have a deal, human. The Voron will stand with you, and together, we will savor the taste of the Council's terror." Commander Trax, Voron, said with a menacing smile. As the screen darkened, Logan turned to his crew, a fire burning in his eyes. "The game pieces are moving. Prepare the fleet. It's time to take the fight to the Council's doorstep," Captain Logan Carter ordered. The combined human and Voron fleet burst from hyperspace on the fringes of the Galactic Council's home system. A dense cluster of heavily populated worlds and immense orbital installations stretched before them. Instantly, alarms howled throughout the system as Council defenses sprang to life, a seemingly impenetrable barrier of warships forming around the central planet, the heart of the Council's dominion. On the Indomitable's bridge, Logan surveyed the gathered forces with a keen eye. Observing the tactical display, Captain Logan Carter said, "They've brought their fleets from all over the galaxy. The core of their military might is here." Samir frowned at the tactical readings. "Even with the Voron numbers, we're still outnumbered in raw firepower." Logan nodded grimly. "That's why we won't hit them head-on. We need to be tactical." He activated the fleet-wide comm, "All vessels, initiate Phase 1. The human and Voron ships began to maneuver, not towards the waiting Council armada, but in a wide arc, bypassing the system's perimeter, targeting a massive space station, bristling with sensor arrays and communication antennae. Explaining, Captain Logan Carter said, "That's the central communications and surveillance hub for the entire system. If we take it down, we'll blind them and sow chaos in their coordination." As the fleet approached the station, the Council warships guarding it accelerated to intercept. Just before they came within firing range, the human ships shimmered and multiplied, each abruptly fragmenting into a dozen mirror images. The Council ships faltered, thrown into confusion, as their scanners were flooded with false returns. By the time they realized the ruse, it was too late. The true human ships, cloaked by sensor ghosts, were already upon them. The void around the station erupted into a close-quarters brawl. The Council ships fought bravely, but were outmatched by the humans' technological advantage and the sheer savagery of the Vorin. Within minutes, the station's defenses were overwhelmed, and a volley of human quantum torpedoes reduced the massive construct to an expanding cloud of debris. Throughout the system, Council ships reeled as their communications were cut, their fleet data network dissolving into white noise. Amidst the disarray, the human and Vorin ships pressed their advantage, striking key targets, shipyards, gun emplacements, refueling points, with surgical precision. On the Indomitable, Logan watched as the Council's tight defensive formation began to break, their ships floundering to react to threats springing up across the system. Phase 1 complete. Initiate Phase 2, Captain Logan Carter ordered. The human and Vorin fleet regrouped, no longer bypassing the main Council armada, but advancing straight towards it, weapons blazing. Logan opened a channel to the Council flagship. "This is Captain Logan Carter of the Terran Sigma fleet. Your communications have been cut, your defenses are crumbling, and your fleet is in chaos. Surrender now, and your lives will be spared," Captain Logan Carter said, his voice firm and authoritative. There was a prolonged silence. Then, a familiar face filled the screen, Counselor Xanth, his features contorted in a rancorous defiance. "We will never surrender to you, human scum. We will fight to the last ship, the last warrior, the last breath." Counselor Xanth exclaimed, his voice laced with hatred. Logan stared at him coldly. "So be it." He cut the channel and turned to his crew. "Signal all ships, no mercy. Let's end this." The human and Vorin ships plunged into the heart of the Council fleet, weapons blazing as the alien vessels rallied to meet them. The void lit up with the glow of 1,000 exploding suns as the two sides clashed, energy beams and missiles crisscrossing the abyss between them. Logan gripped the arms of his command chair as the Indomitable shuddered under a barrage of impacts, her shields flickering. On the view screen, a human destroyer exploded into a ball of plasma as a Council dreadnought siege cannon found its mark. An Aurano cruiser, trailing flames and debris, rammed a Council frigate, both ships vanishing in a blinding flash of mutual annihilation. His voice booming, his eyes never leaving the tactical display, Captain Logan Carter commanded, "Concentrate fire on their command ships. Cut off the head, and the body dies." The human fleet shifted formation, the Indomitable at the tip of the spear, as they advanced on the Council's leadership ships. The alien vessels moved to protect their commanders, pouring a storm of fire into the human advance. A Council battleship, its hull scarred and scorched, loomed before the Indomitable, its gravity cannons hammering the human dreadnought's shields. Logan gritted his teeth as consoles sparked and exploded around him, the bridge filling with acrid smoke. Cutting through the chaos with his voice, Captain Logan Carter commanded, "Divert power to forward shields and weapons. Samir, find a weak point." Samir's hands flew over his console, his brow furrowed in concentration. "There. A fluctuation in their aft shield grid. Coordinates, Gamma 615. Samir exclaimed urgently. The Indomitable swung sharply to starboard, her bow pointed directly at the Council battleship's stern. A heartbeat later, her cannons erupted, a searing spear of concentrated energy streaking across the void to impact directly on the weak point of the alien ship's defenses. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the Council ship seemed to bulge outwards, crack spiderwebbing across its hull as secondary explosions chained within its interior. With a final, silent detonation, the mighty warship shattered, ripped apart from within by the catastrophic reactor breach. Through the expanding debris field, Logan glimpsed the Council flagship, a massive dreadnought bristling with weaponry. Xanth's ship. The seat of Council power and arrogance. Logan leaned forward in his chair, his eyes narrowing. All ships, converge on the flagship. It's time to cut the head off the snake, Captain Logan Carter said, his voice firm. The human and Voran ships slammed into the Council armada, weapons blazing. Energy beams scythed through enemy hulls, missiles spiraled through the void to detonate against failing shields in blooms of fire. Council ships retaliated, but the Allies' advanced technology and overwhelming ferocity overpowered them. In the heart of the chaos, the Indomitable and Xantha's flagship hammered each other in a fierce duel. Lances of energy crackled between the two powerful vessels, chewing through armor and boiling hull plating. On the Indomitable's bridge, a console exploded in a shower of sparks. Logan gripped his command chair as the deck shuddered beneath him. The Indomitable's cannons boomed in reply, an unrelenting barrage hammering the Council flagship's stern. The enemy ship's shields flickered brightly for an instant before collapsing. Flames gouged from its engine section as the Indomitable's weapons found their mark. The flagship spun out of control, trailing wreckage and plasma, but it was too late. The dreadnought's main cannon, a gigantic particle beam cannon, unleashed its fury. The Indomitable's shields flickered brightly for an instant before collapsing. The beam struck the ship's prow, burning through decks, vaporizing bulkheads, leaving utter devastation in its wake. The bridge dissolved into chaos, panels detonating, spewing flames and shrapnel. Crew members were thrown from their stations as the deck bucked. Logan dragged himself up, blood streaming into his eyes from a gash on his forehead. Damage reports flooded in, hull breaches, weapons disabled, crippled engines. But the dreadnought pressed its attack, raking the wounded Indomitable with salvo after punishing salvo. Logan could only watch helplessly as his ship shuddered and burned under the onslaught, his vengeance slipping away. Then, a miracle. A squadron of Voran cruisers, seeing the Indomitable's desperate plight, broke formation and charged the dreadnought, weapons blazing. Caught by surprise, its shields already strained from the duel with the Indomitable, the Council ship's defenses rapidly crumbled under the concentrated fire. The Voran ships swarmed it like angry wasps, explosions peppering the dreadnought's hull as the Voran targeted its weapons and engines with merciless precision. Within minutes, the once unstoppable warship was reduced to a shattered hulk, drifting lifelessly. A cheer of victory erupted on the Indomitable's battered bridge. Logan slumped back into his chair, exhausted and bloodied, but alive. He surveyed the battlefield, where the Council fleet, shaken by the destruction of their flagship and dreadnought, was retreating in disarray. Wearily, Captain Logan Carter said, "Cease fire. Initiate rescue and recovery. And someone get me a damage assessment." He closed his eyes briefly. "We won the day, but this war is far from over." In the aftermath of the titanic battle, the Indomitable hovered in space, her hull scarred by energy blasts, large gashes tearing at her armored sides. Damage control teams raced through corridors, sealing breaches and rerouting power from destroyed conduits. On the bridge, Logan conferred with his chief engineer, poring over damage reports on a flickering screen. Captain Logan Carter commanded, "Divert all available power to the repair drones. Prioritize hull integrity and engine function. We need to be battle-ready as soon as possible." As the crew worked feverishly to restore the mighty vessel, the rest of the fleet maneuvered into view, many vessels bearing the scars of the fierce engagement. Voran ships, their angular hulls adorned with vibrant war paint, docked with the Indomitable, disgorging hordes of boisterous warriors onto the human ship's decks. In the main hangar, a thunderous celebration was underway, as the Voran toasted their victory, clashing their weapons and emptying large mugs of a potent, shimmering liquor. Human crew members, caught up in the infectious spirit, joined the revelry, exchanging war stories and backslapping with their fierce allies. But even as the festivities reached their peak, urgent comms began to flood the Indomitable's communication channels. Logan, his face grim, summoned his senior staff to the briefing room. His voice strained, "Captain Logan Carter said, reports are coming in from all across the galaxy. With the Council's central fleet destroyed and their communications in disarray, uprisings are erupting on dozens of worlds. Long-oppressed species are rising up against their Council masters." Samir, his eyes gleaming, leaned forward. This is the chance we've been waiting for, sir. The council is reeling. If we strike now, hard and fast, we could end their tyranny once and for all. Logan nodded, his mind working quickly. He turned to the Voran commander, a grizzled warrior with a jagged scar bisecting his face. With determination, Captain Logan Carter asked, "What say you, Commander Trax? Your people have suffered under the Council's yoke for centuries. Will you fight with us in this final push?" Trax bared his teeth in a fierce grin. "The Voran are with you, human. Our blades thirst for the Council's blood. Give the order, and we will unleash the full fury of our wrath." Logan nodded, his eyes hard as flint. Then it settled. "We will launch a coordinated assault on the Council's key strongholds. We will hit them from all sides. We will cut off the head of the snake. It's time to end this once and for all," Captain Logan Carter declared. As the fleet leaders departed to brief their crews and prepare for the approaching offensive, an urgent call flickered on Logan's personal comm. He frowned, stepping away to a private corner to take the call. The face that appeared on the screen was haggard, drawn with fear and exhaustion. It was one of Logan's covert operatives, embedded deep within Council space. The operative whispered, glancing over his shoulder as if fearing being overheard, "Captain, I have urgent news. Counselor Xanth, he's alive. He escaped the destruction of his flagship." Logan's blood ran cold. With surprise and fury, Captain Logan Carter asked, "What? How?" "I don't know, but he's rallying the remnants of the Council forces, preparing a counterattack." "And, Captain, there's more," the operative said, licking his lips, his voice trembling. "Xanth has a weapon. Some kind of doomsday device. They say it has the power to destroy entire star systems. He's threatening to use it if the Council's dominion is truly broken." Logan's fist clenched, his knuckles white. The stakes had just become unimaginably higher. If Xanth was allowed to unleash this weapon. His voice like gravel, Captain Logan Carter said, "Understood. Keep me informed." As the fleet jumped into hyperspace, stars streaking into lines of light, Logan stared out the viewport, his jaw tight. They were headed for a remote, heavily defended Council base, where Xanth would be holed up with his apocalyptic weapon. It would be a mission fraught with danger, a desperate race against annihilation. But as Logan looked at the faces of his crew, hardened and determined, he felt a glimmer of hope amidst the dread. They were humanity's champions, the tip of the spear. If anyone could pull this off, it would be them. The Indomitable dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Council base's sensor range. Logan turned to his tactical officer. Captain Logan Carter ordered, "Initiate full stealth protocols." Not a whisper, understood? As the powerful ship glided silently into the shadow of an orbiting moon, its sensor-absorbing coating rendering it almost invisible, Logan gathered his strike team in the armory. They were the best of the best, each hand-picked for their skills and courage. As they checked their weapons and armor, an electric tension filled the air, a cold, calculated anticipation. Logan met each of their eyes, his gaze unwavering. In a low voice, Captain Logan Carter said, "You all know what's at stake. If we fail, if Xanth uses that weapon, there will be no coming back." He placed a hand on the nearest soldier's shoulder, his grip firm. "But we won't fail. We can't. The fate of the galaxy rests on our shoulders." The strike team nodded in unison, their faces etched with iron resolve. They knew the odds, they knew the risks, but they also knew their duty. As the Indomitable slid silently towards the imposing Council base, Logan felt a chill run down his spine. Somewhere in that complex of steel and shadows, Xanth waited, his finger hovering over the trigger of damnation. It would be a battle unlike any they had faced. A desperate fight in the heart of enemy power. But as Logan checked the charge on his plasma rifle, he allowed himself a grim smile. The Council had underestimated humanity for the last time. One way or another, it would end today. The Indomitable glided silently through the void, a predator stalking its prey. On the bridge, Logan Carter was tense and ready, his eyes fixed on the viewscreen showing the council base, growing larger with each passing second. His voice low and firm, Captain Logan Carter ordered, "Prepare for insertion." His strike team, the hand-picked elite, checked their weapons one last time, faces etched with grim determination. As the ship closed in, the base's defenses sprang to life, energy cannons and missile batteries swiveled to lock on target. But the Indomitable was ready. Its advanced stealth technology made it almost invisible to enemy sensors. Captain Logan Carter commanded, "Activate EMP." A pulse of blue-white energy erupted from the ship's prow, sweeping over the base in a cascading wave. In an instant, the defenses went silent, their power systems fried. Roaring, leading the charge, Captain Logan Carter exclaimed, "Go! Go! Go!" The insertion pod slammed into the base's hull, slicing through the outer bulkheads like a plasma torch through butter. The strike team fanned out into the internal corridors. Alarms blared and emergency lights flashed as the Council's elite guards rallied to meet the invaders. Plasma fire crisscrossed the corridors, the air thick with the smell of ozone and scorched flesh. Logan was a whirlwind of motion, his rifle spitting blue death as he advanced, his team close behind. They pushed deeper into the labyrinthine base, leaving a trail of broken bodies in their wake. But the Council guards were relentless, pouring down the corridors like an unending tide. For every one that fell, two more seemed to rise, forcing the strike team to fight for every inch of ground. Logan gritted his teeth as a plasma bolt hummed past his head, close enough to singe his hair. He dropped to one knee, firing a burst of shots that dropped a guard, a smoking hole in his chest. Around him, his team was locked in desperate struggles, the cramped spaces leaving no room for error. He saw Sergeant Hawkins wrestling with a hulking alien, the two tumbling to the floor in a tangle of limbs. Soldier Xiang went down, clutching the blackened ruin of her leg, her screams mixing with the cacophony of battle. But they pressed on, driven by a determination that bordered on madness. They had come too far, sacrificed too much to fail now. Finally, after what seemed an eternity of blood and fire, they reached the heart of the base. The doors to the central command center loomed before them, massive and imposing. Logan didn't hesitate. He slapped an invasion charge onto the unyielding metal and stepped back, his finger hovering over the detonator. Breaching in 3, 2, 1. Captain Logan Carter counted. The world dissolved into smoke and thunder as the charge detonated, ripping the doors from their hinges. Logan was already moving before the echoes faded, storming into the room with his rifle raised. And there, amidst a bank of consoles and holographic displays, stood Counselor Xanth. The alien's face twisted into a cruel smile as he saw Logan, his hand hovering over. With a voice dripping malice, Xanth said, "You're too late, human. With a single command, I can unleash the doomsday device and reduce your precious." Logan aimed his weapon at the counselor, his finger tightening on the trigger. "It's over, Xanth." "Stop," Captain Logan Carter ordered. But Xanth only laughed, a manic glint in his eyes. With insane fury, Xanth exclaimed, "You think you've won? You think your little rebellion means anything? The Council's power is absolute, and I will see it restored, even if I have to destroy 1,000 worlds to do it." His hand slammed down on the control panel, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. But nothing happened. No alarm, no flashing lights, no indication that the doomsday device had been activated. Xanth's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. He pawed at the controls repeatedly, growing more frantic with each failed attempt. He turned to Logan, his face a mask of rage and confusion. Logan allowed himself a small, grim smile. His voice soft, "Captain Logan Carter said, did you truly think we would come here without a plan? While you were focused on us, our operatives were hacking your systems, disabling your weapon. It's over, Xanth. You lost." For a long moment, Xanth just stared at him, his mouth moving soundlessly. Then, with a scream of purely animalistic fury, he charged at Logan, a hidden blade sliding from his sleeve. Logan met him head-on, blocking the alien's strike with his rifle. The two leaders grappled, exchanging blows with brutal efficiency as the command center shook around them, rattled by the ongoing space battle. They crashed into consoles, sparks flying as delicate equipment shattered beneath their weight. Logan felt the bite of Xantha's blade, a line of fire across his ribs, but he pushed past the pain, retaliating with a vicious elbow to the alien's throat. Xanth reeled back, gasping, and Logan pressed his advantage, a quick kick to the knee, a hammer blow to the temple, and the counselor went down, his blade clattering to the floor. Logan stood over his fallen foe, his chest heaving, blood streaming from a dozen wounds. Xanth glared up at him, hatred etched into every line of his face. "Finish it, human. Take your revenge," Xanth spat, his words heavy with blood. For a long, tense moment, Logan just stared down at him, his rifle unwavering. The temptation was there, burning in his veins like molten lead, to end it right here, to pay back all the pain and suffering the council had inflicted with a single, justified pull of the trigger. But even as his finger tightened, a flash of movement caught his eye. He turned, and what he saw chilled his blood in his veins. The Doomsday Device's power core, a pulsating sphere of dark energy, was drifting out of control. Arcs of electricity crawled across its surface. Warning lights flashed an urgent red, and the low, ominous hum of a growing charge filled the air. In an instant, Logan understood, in the chaos of the fight, a stray shot or an errant blow must have damaged the containment field. The core was rapidly destabilizing, its energies building to a cataclysmic release. Logan's mind raced, desperately searching for a solution. But he already knew there wasn't one. There wasn't enough time to evacuate. There wasn't enough time to try and repair the damage. Only one path remained, one desperate, last-ditch gamble. He turned to his strike team, the survivors of that hellish push. They stared back at him, bruised and bloodied, but unbroken, ready for whatever came next. His voice hoarse with emotion, Captain Logan Carter said, "Get back to the ship. All of you. Get as far away from here as you can." Sergeant Hawkins protested, taking a step forward, "But, sir, what about you?" Logan met his gaze, a sad smile playing on his lips. "I'm staying behind. I'll try to contain the blast." "I'll buy you as much time as I can," Captain Logan Carter replied. Understanding dawned in the sergeant's eyes, followed by a flash of anguish. He started to argue, but Logan cut him off with a raised hand. "That's an order, Hawkins. Get our people out of here." "It's the only way," Captain Logan Carter said. For a long, painful moment, the two men just looked at each other, a lifetime of service and sacrifice passing between them. Then, slowly, Hawkins nodded, tears shining in his eyes. In a low voice, Sergeant Hawkins said, "It's been an honor, sir." He delivered a crisp military salute. Logan returned the salute, his vision blurred. The honor was his. One by one, the strike team members filed out, each stopping to offer their own farewell, a handshake, a mumbled word of thanks. Logan watched them go, pride and sorrow warring in his chest. Finally, he was alone, the command center silent save for the ominous hum of the destabilizing core. He turned to face it, squaring his shoulders against the rising tide of fear. He thought of Earth, of the green hills of his childhood home. He thought of his crew, of the brave men and women who had followed him to hell and back. And he thought of that small, innocent child, the one whose death started it all. Whispering, taking a step towards the maelstrom, Captain Logan Carter said, "This is for you, kid. For all of you." The world dissolved into blinding light and shattering thunder, and Captain Logan Carter knew no more. Thus ends the saga of Captain Logan Carter, a name that became synonymous with human resilience and sacrifice. In the face of overwhelming tyranny, humanity not only refused to bow, but, pushed to the brink, unearthed an ancient power and became the catalyst for the liberation of an entire galaxy. The seed of vengeance, planted in the blood of an innocent, blossomed into a harvest of freedom for countless species. The Galactic Council, in its blind arrogance, underestimated the indomitable flame that burns in the human heart, their ingenuity, their ferocity, and above all, their unwavering determination to protect their own. The fall of their empire marks not only the end of an era of oppression but the dawn of a new galactic future, forged with human courage and unlikely alliances. Humanity's journey in the cosmos is just beginning. It will be a force to be reckoned with, a beacon of hope, and, if necessary, an unstoppable storm for anyone who dares to threaten freedom. May the memory of those who fell inspire them to continue charting their own destiny among the stars. If you felt the fury and hope of this story, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more epic sci-fi narratives.